Hello and welcome to part 2 of my Escape the Dark Sector series. Now, let's get some negatives out of the way first. Beautiful insert, but it's totally useless if you want to sleeve your cards. They won't fit in, so I've had to ditch the insert and put stuff in like this. That's a little bit disappointing. However, that's pretty much all there is to say really on the negative front. The quality of this cardstock is good, it's thick, and with the sleeves really sturdy. Most of the dice seem to be printed pretty well, and I've got to say, from a production quality point of view, this game is superb. To actually play the game, you're going to want to get your boss cards, you're going to shuffle them up, and then you're going to get one and you're going to put it face down ready to play. Then with part 3, you're going to shuffle those up and you're then going to take 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, put that on top. You're then going to do the same with part 2, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that is 4. Then you're going to do the same with part 1, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So end up with about 13 cards in what's known as your mission deck. So the boss and then 4 of each particular encounter deck. You're then going to get your random starting cards and you're going to shuffle those up. You shuffle them up and then you get one and you pop it on top. So once you've done that, you've got your deck ready to go. So mission start, 1, 2, 3, boss. Now, depending on how you want to play, I actually quite randomise in who you start with. So I would shuffle these up and they've got this lovely load in your personnel file thing on the back, so really good quality production, and I love this old school art style. Alternatively, if you want to, you can obviously pick a good mix of your party. So let's say we're playing with Lieutenant Abbott. I need to hunt around amongst all these starter dice. So Tanner, there he is, Abbott. So Lieutenant Abbott gets his dice, and if I'm not playing with these, I don't need them, they go back in the box. I then need to allocate a starting cybernetic card, which are these cards here. Now again, you can flip them over and you can pick what you want, or if you prefer slightly more random, shuffle them up. So let's say this one here, and it's the advanced targeting system. So he's going to be, you know, reasonably good at shooting because he gets to re-roll an ammo dice. Although he doesn't get to pick. If he re-rolls, he has to take whatever he re-rolls as what he rolled. Now recall, these dice are your ammo dice, whereas the big dice are the chapter dice, and then obviously your character has their own chapter dice. Before I forget, you're also going to need a black one. Once you're ready to go, you're going to start off with your medical chart, and as you take damage and heal, it's going to go up and down as it tracks along here. We're also going to want to shuffle up the item card, so, you know, give them a good shuffle, and these are going to go next to the mission deck, ready for, you know, grabbing some after we've dealt with some baddie. You can set aside your accomplished or failed cards. You won't be needing them right till the end, but you will want these cards set up ready to be used, and obviously when you use them, you flip them over. And these are handy things to come, you know, around the table, so I'd recommend maybe getting a scan of these and printing out extras for your players. Now these white cards here with these symbols, these are referred to in the rulebook as starting weapons. Now unfortunately, in looking at the setting up the game section on page 6, it doesn't actually mention giving these to you, but I'm pretty sure you're meant to take these along with the cybernetic enhancement. So I would again randomise these and deal them out, but there you go, that's what those are for. Now in the black deck there are special weapons, including two-handed weapons, which you lie sideways. Let's see if I can, yeah, here you go. So you've got these two-handed weapons which take up 2 item slots, whereas a normal thing would be vertical. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Now the game works by reading this out, doing what it says on the card. Then you choose a player to be you, i.e. the first player, and you flip your card and you respond to the card depending on what it says. So we're going to spoil this card here. So we've got this guy here who takes damage from bullets at 2 damage, energy at 1 damage, and explosions at 3 damage. They have a ranged and a melee attack, so you can choose which one to do. When you defeat them, you're going to draw 2 item cards, and they in melee combat get 2 fists, an eye, and 1 dice per player. And you read out the flavor text and you run down through the text. So you, i.e. the first player, loses 1 hit points as he shoots at you. Then you choose, do you let him through, which means you draw an item card, or do you attack, in which case you can choose to either engage in ranged or melee attack. Now if you choose to do a melee attack, you can have one of you decide to flank them, which will give you a bonus in the flank attack round. So you forego doing something this turn to do a flank next turn. If you get injured, you can put your dice on the drone, which means you get to heal 1 point, but then you flip it and no one else can get healed. So that's a bit savage. It was a bit easier, I think, in Dark Castle to heal because you could choose to rest. So yeah, just watch out for that. Obviously, once you've got past the flanking stage, you flip this over, flanking's no longer available. Now, if you choose to engage in some ranged combat, you're going to have as many dice as you have ammo, and you're going to roll as many dice as your fire rate, and it gives you some icons here. So if you roll the supercharged bullet, you're going to get double hits, and if you roll the exclamation mark, typically your weapon's going to jam. Now, if you roll the super bullet mark, that's 2 bullets. Now, if you remember correctly, this guy here, he takes 2 damage from bullets. So if you rolled the super bullet, you'd actually do him 4 hits. So yeah, that would be pretty good. Now, if you remember, we laid out some chapter dice. So 1, 2, 3, let's say there's 2 players. So this guy can take 5 hits. So staying with our example of rolled in a super bullet where we've done 4 damage to him, he'd have 1 dice left. So if you've got a flank attack, you might be able to finish him off, or you might choose to go straight to melee. Now you might decide to always do a flank attack, but what you've got to watch out for is you've got to roll this dice, and if you roll the hit symbol, then you're going to take 1 damage, get into flank position, plus you're not going to act this turn. However, in the new round of combat, you can do a shoot or a fight attack. Now obviously a shoot attack is a ranged attack, he could shoot back at you, whereas if you do a melee attack, then you kind of run in and smack him one. And if you do a flank melee attack, you actually remove an extra dice, which is always good. If you do that flank attack as well, then potentially you're not going to take any damage because you've sort of ambushed them effectively. Now if you're doing a shoot, you also get to roll an additional, remove rather, an additional chapter dice. So it's a question of, do you want to keep shooting where there's a risk of shots back, or do you want to go in for the kill with your melee attack? But the melee attack works just like Escape the Dark Castle, where if there's any dice left over, you're going to take damage. So this particular guy is going to cause you 1 damage if you don't block it. Then once you killed him, you're going to get the 2 item cards, just like Escape the Dark Castle. So that's all pretty simple. This bit here is potentially new, so you can choose to reload. So you choose a weapon card and take a number of ammo dice indicated by the ammo value and place it on. So that's pretty cool. You can choose to activate your drone, which is like healing, but of course the problem there is no one else can heal. Trade, you can swap items, or you can take cover, which means you potentially take no damage. The combat specials are triggered by the enemy, and you then defeat them. And if you defeat them in range combat, you've got to resolve the return fire. If you defeat them in close combat, then they're dead and they don't get to attack back. And then after combat, as it says here, you draw items equal to the number in the symbol there. So it's 2 on our enraged old fellow, but it could be 1, it could be 3, it could be any number, to be honest. So having defeated this guy, he goes away and we draw our next card, and we keep doing that until we get to the final boss. If we defeat the final boss, we escape and we win. However, there is a problem. Everyone has to escape. It's an all or nothing sort of game. So if 4 of you are playing and 3 of you escape but 1 of you dies, you don't win. So it's pretty brutal. And yeah, it's very simple really, but there are these extra little tweaks that just make this a little bit trickier. Now the range combat and the flanking are the bits that are going to catch out players, I think. So there you go, that's just a very quick overview of how to sort of play the game, and the rulebook's pretty well laid out. As I say, if someone has found where it talks about the starting weapons, for whatever reason, staring at the page, it's just not jumping out at me. So I assume it should be in this section here where select crew and cybernetics. Yeah, anyway, that's it really. So, you know, each card is potentially going to have a little decision point, and you can obviously choose who is you each turn, so that's a tactical choice. You can choose whether you want to bypass someone, ranged attack, flank, or melee them. You can choose who's going to heal. So there are a few little choices which are just a little bit of extra burden on the players, which, as I hinted at in my unboxing, might be a little bit too much for starter players. So Escape the Dark Castles may be better from that point of view. However, I actually think the production quality and the rules are better in Escape the Dark Sector. It's a much more mature product, but maybe the simplicity of Dark Castle still wins through. So it'd be very interesting to see if they do a second edition of the Dark Castle where they update the backs. And I guess if you've got the first edition, the way around that would be for them to produce sleeves that have a back with a picture on that would match this sort of design aesthetic, but obviously for a fantasy setting. Now, as I say, apart from the insert, there's not too much to criticise about the game from a quality point of view. And yeah, I'm actually having trouble getting this to the table with my beginner player, but hopefully we'll get it played, and then I'll be able to do a sort of a comparative review between Dark Castle and Dark Sector and which one's better. My gut is telling me that this is going to be a better game, but maybe not quite so popular because of that tiny little extra rules overhead. But it's only a small amount, so don't go thinking this is a really tricksy game. But it's maybe enough compared to the Dark Castle that, given the choice, a beginner player would pick Castle over Sector. Anyway, that will do for this video. So until the next one, happy gaming.